family. Thank you again for watching another edition of Plant Dominant Dollars with Nina Fletcher. I am your host, Nina Fletcher. Let's get to it. A lot of you have been asking a lot of great questions, and I'm so glad because that means you are watching. So, here's what we're going to do. I wanted to introduce a new recipe to you today. A lot of you have been asking me about a good chili. The next question I had been getting was about how to get nice doses of protein in your diet as a vegan. And so I said, okay. And there was one more question that people were asking in terms of doing dishes that were not going to hit your glycemic index very hard. So I decided to pull all of that into one dish. And this is my chickpea chili. This is one dish that I used regularly in my transition because when I began to transition towards more plant-based eating, I was also exercising. So I really needed massive amounts of protein, and I needed a very tasty way of getting them in. So we're going to hit something that doesn't hike your glycemic index. We're going to hit proteins, and we're going to hit the question of chili today on Plant Dominant Dollars with Nina Fletcher. So, here are our first ingredients. I'm going to go over them very briefly because you're very familiar. These are your heirloom tomatoes. I do prefer these in the chili. These are your plum tomatoes, of course, a red, and you guys know what this is. This is thyme, this is sage. My kitchen is never without those two things, thyme and sage, always, and always fresh. And of course, we have our shallots, and of course, our red onions. We are going to be using a thumbnail count of ginger today, and also our carrots. Although this one looks a little dry, it's still tasty. So, what we have not used is our protein, and this is our plant protein. These are chickpeas. They're also called garbanzo beans. Depending on what region you come from, they go by different names. These are famous for making dips, stews, anything, because they are so versatile. Now, let me be the first to tell you something. I hated chickpeas, hated them. And the reason I hated them was because I was eating them out of the can. Out of the can, they taste very metallic. I do not recommend it, okay? I would recommend that you get your chickpeas dried and find you a nice little ball jar and soak them. So basically what happens is you take your chickpeas when they're in this form, right? And you fill it probably halfway full with chickpeas. And then you fill it up with water all the way up to the top. And before long, you leave it on your countertop. In about 4 hours or so, it's going to double in size. And they're going to go all the way up to the top. So you have a nice big jar of chickpeas that are just pretty much ready to go. And just to give you a little visual about how they swell. See, they sort of double in size. Okay? So that's the first thing that's unique with this particular recipe. You're going to be soaking your chickpeas. So that's something you want to do either before you go to work or overnight. Okay? The second thing you're going to be soaking is, they call it forbidden rice. It's black rice. To those of us who have been eating it for years, we know it's black rice. Don't try to get around it. It's black rice. So what you do is, again, with the ball jar, You take your black rice, you go ahead and pour that in, right? And then what you do is you get a little bit of water. In fact, you know what? I'll go ahead and soak a little bit more so you can really get the full effect of what's going on. See how I filled that up the rest of the way with water? And you also want to do this. Who knows what this is? I talk about them all the time. If you can't find a key lime, use a lime. Okay? So, key lime it is. So you take your key lime, squeeze it in. And yes, for this, I do use a whole key lime. Remember, key limes and limes basically cook things. They aid in the cooking process. So when you're adding it to the rice, you're actually adding to the cooking process as it's rising. So after you squeeze your key limes in, shake it up a little bit. Make sure the lid's nice and tight. Both of those things are going to sit until they come to the top of the jar. That means that they're actually ready to cook. So now that we've got the soaking process out of the way, I want to take you to sort of what would be the first step, okay? All of these ingredients here, what you're going to do is cut them into nice, eatable sizes. Now, let me explain to you what I mean by eatable. If you notice, I'm taking each one of these, and none of these are actually bigger than the soaked chickpea. That's going to give you a very nice consistency. You don't want a whole lot of different sizes so it doesn't cook evenly. So you want to chop your vegetables up into about the same size as the chickpeas, okay? Then what you're going to do is you're going to automatically start your heat. Remember, you always start with a cold pot. I've always said that, cold pot. Put in a little bit of olive oil, and you're going to let that go, and you're going to wait until you start hear it talking a little bit, start sizzling a little bit. In the meantime, what you want to do is to go ahead and take these same ingredients and add your sage and your thyme in your food processor. And after you've added all of the ingredients except for the chickpeas, of course, not the chickpeas, what you're going to do, this is something new. Now, I'm not a big fan of prepared foods, but I found an awesome vegan veggie bouillon. And I actually used it once, and I really do like it. It's quick and easy for those of us who need to cook something after work and don't have time to make that whole homemade broth situation. This will do it. So what you want to do, go ahead and put that in. Okay. And you want to cover that up. Now, we're not actually going to blend at this point because we have another step, believe it or not. So let's go ahead back over to the stove very quickly. And I want to show you what I have in the pot. These are annatto seeds, and I want you to take a really good look at them. Okay? Annatto seeds they have a very nutty and a hearty flavor. These are seeds you don't necessarily grind up. You don't want to grind these. What you want to do with annatto seeds is to add just a little bit of olive oil, right? I'm going to say maybe a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons, right? And you're going to bring that under medium heat. Now here's the trick. You can't let that burn. You want to keep an eye on it. It's not supposed to sizzle. The oil is simply turn red and take the color of the seeds. Okay? So we're going to let that go for a minute. I think I want to put just a little bit more olive oil on that. So we're going to let that go for a minute. And now our pot of vegetables is actually moving. So we're going to come back over here and give that a little toss. Yeah, that's coming to where it needs to be. Now let's get with our seasonings here. People use different things in their chilies. And that's cool. I think you'll find my seasoning pack quite unique, so just sort of follow along, okay? So, I put in, you know what, I'll start with the easy for you guys. I put in a little bit of Himalayan salt. Now mind you, I don't like salty chilies, okay? So I don't use a whole lot of salt. If you're using a lot of salt in your chili, it's a cheat. Because the chili is all about the seasonings and the flavor. So I put a little bit of Himalayan in. Cracked black pepper. This is regular paprika. Just a little bit. This is smoked paprika. So I actually, oops, excuse me. Where's my smoked paprika? Here it is. This is smoked paprika. I actually use both. This is ground cumin, and I'm probably using about a teaspoon of each. Teaspoon and a half maybe. Now, here's what makes my flavor pack a little bit different. I use cinnamon. A lot of people do not use cinnamon. I think it brings it to a well-rounded thing. On occasion, I will use a slight bit of nutmeg. Okay? And chipotle chili. All right, so we've added a little bit of chipotle seasoning. I like chipotle seasoning because it's a little bit hot and a little bit sweet at the same time. So that is pretty much almost the crux of what I put in as my flavor pack. This is quite different. And this is something that you probably will not see in another chili recipe. I'm using cocoa powder or cacao powder. I actually like the deepness of cacao powder in my chilies. So I use a little of that as well. Now if you take a really good look, our annatto seeds are they're just starting to become fragrant, and they're starting to pick up a red color. And that's exactly what you want. So as that picks up its red color, you're going to prepare your pan, and you're going to have to strain that in. So what you do is you take the unburned annatto seeds and you strain that into your mixture. Okay? And you can actually save the seeds for later use. To your moisture pack here, and this is when you start the blending a little bit, and you just pretty much turn it on. Jay, are you serious right now? Can you count me back in?
3, 2,
get the browner parts of your seasonings from off the bottom of the pan. That's where the flavor is. And then what you want to do is take the contents of your blender and go ahead and add that in. And then it's at this point, you take your chickpeas, and of course you want to drain them. Very easy drain because they've already been cleaned and soaked. You can go ahead and put them right in. And generally, it's after you soak them, the measurement is about 1 to 1. So if I have a ball jar of chickpeas, I'm probably going to put about a ball jar or a ball jar and a half of water in and just let them cook. Okay, so at this point, what you're going to do is give it one final stir to make sure all the ingredients are incorporated. And you're going to bring it up to a boil, and then you're going to cover it, let it rip, let it go. Just don't even think about it. It's just going to cook, 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 cook. Okay? So now I'm going to bring you over to the black rice. Now remember, we soaked it, and then after you soak it, you drain it. And the black rice is basically 1 to 1. I mean, or 2 to 1. 2 cups of water, 1 cup of rice, that kind of thing, right? Same way you would cook rice. But this is it after it's done. Okay? So that's very easy. I didn't have to show a tutorial in that because you guys know how to cook rice. I just think you didn't know how to soak the rice first. So that is how you cook black rice. Okay? Awesome. So, as always, I work just a little bit ahead. So, I'm ready for the plate up. All right, so here we go. Black rice is very, very good for the glycemic index. Okay, it's got a lot of proteins in it, and what makes it so good for the glycemic index is that it's whole. It's not like white rice, which is mostly sugars. You still have all of the nutrients in your black rice. Okay, now just for taste and edification, it would be at this point that I normally add a little bit of sauteed kale or my stir-fried kale. But that's another show. I mean, I'm just saying. That's what I would do. So there goes your black rice. Very easy to make. Very healthy. Helps the glycemic index. Now we're going to go for the proteins. And this is our finished chili. This is our finished chickpea chili. You want to make sure that everything is basically incorporated. So you give it one final stir. And here is our chili. This is an excellent source of protein. If you look it up online, chickpeas are some of the highest proteins you can eat in the plant kingdom in terms of the legumes. Okay, so there you have it, something that's going to give you great proteins. It's also not going to hike your glycemic index. And it's just altogether good and a chili. So I killed 3 birds with 1 stone. Now, to enjoy this even more, this is just me, I like to go ahead and I pre-made, and I will do this in another show, I pre-made some cornbread. This is vegan cornbread. And as you go along in your plant-dominant journey, you start to figure out ways to make things rise without using eggs, etc. And we will cover that in another show. But for the sake of taste and just because I love it, now here goes that nice earth balance. It's pretty good. So I put that on top just a little bit. Yes, yes, yes. And can you tell I get excited at this time? And this is just me. Don't judge me. I put just a little bit of grated beef maple on top of my cornbread. So, time for the taste test. Give me a little black rice, a little chickpea chili. Let me tell you something. Let me look at that cornbread. I taste it again to make sure. Dinner is served. So, you have to understand, when you go on your plant-based journey, expect for the food to serve you in your body and taste good too. Thank you again for joining me for another edition of Plant Dominant Dollars. My name is Nina Fletcher, and I hope to see you next time.
Thank you for watching Plant Dominant Dollars with Nina Fletcher. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tune in next week when Nina takes on
Making waffles and pancakes without dairy.
Here on Plant Dominant Dollars with Nina Fletcher. It's the genius!